begin with the story of a woman whose husband walked out on her when she was 4 months pregnant, and she had 2 little kids as well as that, and the man just left. No support, nothing. Well, it took Patricia Bennett 17 years, but as Vanessa Moody reports, she's finally gotten justice.
More than 20 years ago, Pat Bennett's husband, Oscar David Gibson, walked out on her and 3 kids. He never came back, but then Pat Bennett never gave up looking for him either. There would be a day of reckoning, though, when Gibson had to answer for what he put his family through. For almost 17 years, his family bore the scars of welfare, bigamy, and rejection. His daughters grew up, but their father ran away.
I don't think we wanted to believe that he left us. We wanted to believe that there was something that was keeping him from us. It makes me think, even if my mom was a horrible person, what did that have to do with us? What did we do to him? We didn't do anything to him. All we wanted was a father.
Pat Bennett and Oscar David Gibson's marriage was severed in 1968 when Gibson walked out. At first, Gibson stayed in his home state of Virginia, living and working close to his family. But his support was always sporadic. Pat Bennett obtained a court order for child support, but her husband only made 2 payments.
I couldn't afford groceries, so my parents had to support me. And all the while, he was working. He had an income. He had a brand new car.
Gibson claimed that his 23-year-old wife was harassing him at work and causing him to lose his various jobs. After being separated for 8 months, Gibson simply ran away. His credit card bills showed that he headed west, leaving his destitute wife to pay for his gas as he abandoned his family. In almost 17 years, Pat Bennett only heard about her husband once, when a woman called her in late 1970. The woman's husband had left her, too. In fact, papers he left behind indicated that Oscar David Gibson had committed bigamy.
I was very shocked when I received a phone call from this woman in September of 1970. She was all equally shocked because she had no idea that he had a family, that he was married, that he had 3 little babies.
The 2 women compared notes and pictures. They confirmed between themselves that the man known in Texas as James Parker was actually Oscar David Gibson. Gibson had married again only 7 months after he ran away from Pat Bennett and his 3 daughters. But Pat Bennett was also told her husband had left Texas. She had no way to find him, nowhere to look. So she focused on her own life instead. She put herself through college and got her family off the welfare rolls. With no word after 3.5 years, Pat Bennett finally divorced her husband in absentia. 10 years later, his family had Gibson declared legally dead. While applying for death benefits for her children, Pat started digging into her husband's past. She contacted his second wife, and that's when she discovered how to hunt him down. He had become an insurance adjuster. Armed with new information, it only took Pat Bennett 4 days to track her ex-husband to this house outside Tampa, Florida. Gibson was still going by the name James Parker. He had a new wife and son. A registered insurance adjuster, Pat Bennett even found her ex-husband's business listed in the local phone book. To confirm his identity, Pat Bennett hired a private investigator to secretly take his picture. Then she told her daughters.
I was really angry. I was like, you mean he is alive? You mean he really didn't disappear? I mean, he really wasn't, not able to see us. He really did do this on purpose.
Afraid that he would run again, Pat Bennett had him arrested for back child support. Gibson was brought to justice almost 17 years after he had abandoned his wife and 3 daughters.
And I was angry. Here, after all these years, the first time that these children are going to remember seeing their dad, your mother's going to drag them out there in chains and leg irons. No, that's not the way.
When I saw him, I felt good. And the feeling was, I don't care anymore. And I knew that I didn't. So that was a relief to me. And it also gave me a sense of freedom. It was freedom from the past.
Gibson's daughters sent pictures to their father, but he refused to see them while he was in jail. But then the story hit the papers, and the 2 sides squared off to fight the child support issue. Meanwhile, his daughters say their questions went unanswered. It took almost 2 years for them to meet their father face-to-face outside a court hearing.
And they wanted to tell him and to fill him in on 20 years of their lives. And that's not what he wanted.
Andrea and Marcia, they were running through the parking lot looking for my license plate on my car. And when they saw my car, they jumped up and down and were clapping their hands and said, now we've got the bastard. We've got him now.
You get rejected for 19 years or 18 years of your life, and you finally get the confrontation, and you're rejected again and again and again.
it gets difficult, and he's got to understand that. I wanted some remorse from him. I wanted him to say he was sorry. I wanted to explain why he left, why he just gave up to girls, and why he didn't care.
Gibson tried to explain his life in hiding to Inside Edition producer John Cavanaugh. But like his family, we found his answers questionable. Here's his reason for running.
I had no ability to make child support payments, and Patsy wouldn't allow it. She ran me out of the last jobs that I had, even tried to run me over with a car.
He was driven out of town by the mere fact that the court expected the order to be obeyed, and he obviously didn't want to obey it.
Gibson admits to his bigamist marriage, but he points out that it was a no, like it never existed.
It's not so much that I wanted to get married. Stella was wanting a husband, and I had no place else to go. So it was a matter of convenience for me.
But Gibson committed to his marriage of convenience under an assumed name.
Did you legally change your name?
Yes.
But even Gibson admits that no official record of his name change has ever been found. In fact, later that day, his lawyer was working on legally changing Gibson's name.
So is he legally James Parker right now?
Yeah. Not until we file his petition.
While in hiding, Gibson also says that he obtained a new Social Security number.
I went and applied to the Social Security office and got a Social Security number.
You did?
Yeah, absolutely.
Under the name's James Parker?
Yes.
The Social Security Administration says that a person's number is for life. While no charges have been filed against Gibson, it is a felony offense to change your number. We also asked Gibson why he didn't support his children while he was in hiding.
You have to remember that I started from zero. I was a street person, sleeping in doorways, and it took me 10 years to get any kind of wherewithal that I might be able to take on Mrs. Bennett or Gibson.
But an employment application filled out by Gibson, a.k.a. Parker, states that he was making $12,500 a year by 1972, seemingly enough to pay $50 a week child support. When we asked Gibson to respond to the inconsistencies in his story, he refused. But Gibson did assert that he cared deeply for his children while he was in hiding.
It's heart-wrenching to know that there a part of you is out there, and you want to be with them. Surely you think that they want to be with you, but it can't be because her mother just won't allow it.
I didn't buy that. I don't think that anybody could, if I had 3 children, I don't think there's anything in the world that could stop me from caring for them.
On December 11, 1987, Gibson was found liable for a judgment of over $148,000. That's for back child support, interest, and legal costs. Gibson was briefly jailed for contempt of court, but he was released and has appealed his case to the Florida Supreme Court. Now Pat Bennett has told her life story in a book. Gibson says his life has been shattered and accuses his ex-wife of pushing the case for the publicity value. Who do you believe in the case of the runaway father?
If Gibson fails to provide the child support he is now paying, he could face a jail sentence. When we come back, Michael Jackson's sister. Now, she's bad.
Talking to some of the head people at Playboy, and them telling me that I would be in the company of such greats as Cecilia Loren and of course, Bridget Bardot and Marilyn Monroe. I said, well, gosh, this is wonderful.
LaToya Jackson appears in the latest edition of Playboy in various stages of undress. Now, I know what you're saying. How on earth could this possibly happen? After all, she's Michael Jackson's sister, and as far as we know, Michael certainly hasn't got any plans for doing anything other than keep his clothes on. LaToya's going to tell us why she took hers off. But first, Vanessa Moody brings us up to date on LaToya's career so far.
32-year-old LaToya Jackson is number 5 in the famous family of 9 brothers and sisters. During the early years of the Jackson 5, she stayed in the background. But in the early 80s, showbiz took hold. LaToya recording the first of several albums. None of them really made it big, and she's often referred to as the least successful singer in the family. LaToya has decided to do something about that, drastically changing her image. Now the long, high-cut gowns have been replaced with skin-tight pants, or even less. Boasting that she's Playboy's highest-paid model, a 12-page spread of LaToya will be featured in Playboy's March issue. And she's got a new sound, a harder, funkier beat, a beat which she hopes will finally put her on the map as something other than Michael Jackson's older sister.
This time
gone too far. Gonna suck you in your heart and leave a scar.
LaToya, welcome.
Oh, thank you, David.
Great to have you here. It says here in the press release about your photo spread, possibly bad and definitely a thriller. And it is a thriller. Is it bad?
I don't know. You've seen the book. What do you think?
I think it's terrific.
Oh,
and it's called Don't Tell Michael. But you did tell Michael.
Well, actually, we discussed it, and he had seen the pictures before. Actually, I didn't know, but he had seen the pictures before I had even asked him about it.
And what did he say about them?
He thought they were absolutely great.
Terrific. Did he like the ones with the boa constrictor?
Yes, he did.
It's various lengths. Why did you pick a boa constrictor?
I love snakes. We grew up with them.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. We grew up with snakes. Well, we have lots of animals, so... And I wanted the photo session to be with lots of snakes all over the bed. And, of course, the staff was totally afraid of the snakes, so they came with one.
Oh, I see. But you had to be careful, didn't you? Has to be fed.
Well, you always have to be careful with them. Always.
But what's the vital thing? You have to feed them.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. When I handled the snake, I said, when was the last time the snake has eaten?
And what did the rest of the family think? Your parents are not too sure, right?
Not too sure. They don't agree with it at all.
Because they were quite strict when you were growing up.
Oh, very, and they still are.
And so have you actually talked to them about it?
We've discussed it. We haven't discussed it since it's been out, actually.
Well, it's actually on sale, in fact, tomorrow, isn't it?
Tomorrow, yes.
And so that...
But, of course, they've heard lots of talk about it.
I bet they have.
But 2 months ago, they asked me if I had done it.
And you said,
yes. I answered without an answer. Yes.
But the rest of the family are in support?
Some are and some aren't. So you're not going to get total support. And I expected that. But it's something that I felt that I wanted to do.
Was it your, to use a constitutional phrase, was it your Declaration of Independence?
In a sense, yes, it was. I think it will show me as my own identity, as an individual, someone who wants to do what she wants to do for a change, and not let anyone else guide her and tell her what to do.
Yes, because I suppose the Jackson name is a great plus in opening the door, but then people demand more of you, do they?
Yes, of course. Naturally they do. Yeah. Always.
So that if you don't sell 30 million copies of an album, then you haven't succeeded.
Right, if you're Jackson.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So now you're striking out. You've got this going. You've got a new record out today.
Yes.
Wicked Love.
Wicked Love is
So we've got
today.
Bad, Thriller, Wicked.
Wicked Love. All those
evil,
titles.
Sinful, all these things happening. And that's out today.
Yes.
And then you're working on a perfume?
Yes, I'm working on a perfume line, and it's called Platinum.
And how do you work out that it's a good smell?
Well, gosh, that's what we're doing now. It's every 3 days I go to the factory, and we're testing different smells and fragrances. And you wear them for a couple of days, and of course you let other people smell them and then see what they think. And what I feel is the best smell, and that's what we go with.
Now, Jack, your manager, was quoted in USA Today on Friday as saying that you ought to have married Mike Tyson. Would that have been a good idea?
I don't know. I've never thought of that. I haven't given it a thought.
It says here, Jack Gordon says, she and Mike Tyson should have married. Would that have been a good idea?
Well, that's probably what he thinks. I think Mike's a nice person, and I've never looked at it that way as marriage or anything like that.
Just friendship?
Yes. Actually, I've only met him once.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, well, it would have to be love at first sight, or love at second sight. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
The perfume's platinum. I hope the record is too.
Oh, thank you. I do too.
LaToya Jackson's visual Declaration of Independence. When we come back, Marilyn Chambers, Under Pressure, from Inside Edition's Bill O'Reilly.
You have to put yourself in a person's position who's had a loved one murdered or raped. They would have to possibly feel that pornography was responsible.
Marilyn Chambers is a woman who's become wealthy and semi-famous doing X-rated films. Chambers and others like her are under fire now because many think that pornography can incite violence. And that point of view was supported last week from a very unlikely source, Ted Bundy. Bill O'Reilly reports.
On the night before he died, Ted Bundy finally confessed to his crimes. In doing so, he blamed his murderous spree on being exposed to pornography.
I've met a lot of men who were motivated to commit violence just like me. And without exception, every one of them was deeply involved in pornography, without question, without exception, deeply influenced and consumed by an addiction to pornography.
Bundy's statement rekindled the fierce debate over whether hardcore pornography leads to violent crime. Perhaps the most visible spokesperson for the pornography industry is Marilyn Chambers, a former model who has become wealthy acting in hardcore sex films. Chambers is not doing X-rated films right now, but defends the industry.
Before he was executed, Ted Bundy blamed his crimes on pornography. How do you react to that?
I can't buy that one. Sorry. You know, I think it was a last-ditch attempt to, he was trying to save himself up to the very end. The kinds of films that I've done in the past, I believe are very healthy for a marital relationship or two people who are in love. I know that I use it as a marital aid for myself and my husband, and I feel that it's very helpful, and I don't believe that it's harmful. If I had to do it all over again, if it was the same time and space in my life and in society, yes, I would. Most certainly. Because for me, doing the Ivory Soap, a lot of people don't know. I was the mother on the Ivory Soap box holding the baby.
Everybody knows now.
No, a lot of people don't know. And, that I was in a film called Behind the Green Door, and they came out the very same week. Well, that was a PR man's ultimate dream. And, for me, it was being in the right place in the right time, which I believe that all wealth and success comes from is that quirk of fate that makes it right. And, I have had a wonderful time, and I would certainly do it all over again. I wouldn't change one thing.
Ms. Chambers says, or claims, she's cleaned up her act, and she's out promoting a new R-rated picture, which I suppose for her is almost like a children's film. Now an update on a story we brought you last week about a polygamist cult where the members who leave fear for their lives. John Scott has the newest developments.
Ervil LeBaron set himself up as prophet and leader of his own polygamist church. He preached that those who opposed his doctrines should be subject to death. Investigators say perhaps 24 murders have resulted, the latest last summer, when 3 former church members and an 8-year-old girl were gunned down the same day in Dallas and Houston. Rena Chynoweth is an ex-wife to Ervil LeBaron. Her 2 brothers and her niece were 3 of those latest victims.
And they didn't deserve to die for not following Ervil.
No. No one else does. I want it to stop.
But it hasn't stopped. This is a picture of Rena's brother, Mark, with his family before his murder last summer. Mark had married Lillian LeBaron, one of Ervil LeBaron's daughters. This past weekend, she was found dead in her home with a bullet in her head and a gun in her hand. Police consider it a suicide, but they are still investigating. Her death leaves 6 children orphans.
John Scott. We'll be back with the latest on a lighter note in the search for Elvis after this. And finally, if you look and sound like Elvis Presley, ABC wants you. The network is looking for a young Elvis type to play the king in a new series, Elvis Good Rockin'. It occurs to us that if Elvis really is still alive, this would be the perfect time for his comeback. After all, a primetime series has got to be better than hanging around a Burger King in Michigan or being a dental assistant in Ohio, which are 2 of the places where Elvis was allegedly spotted recently. So if your accent is southern, you can hit those high notes, you look spiffy in blue suede shoes, or you're staying in a heartbreak hotel, ABC wants to talk to you. On tomorrow's Inside Edition, you won't see pop star Debbie Gibson taking her clothes off, but you will see her in action. And we'll bring you the story of a college death that should not have happened.
She was pale, shaking. There was a vein in her neck that was just throbbing.
A simple college experiment taught this pretty co-ed a deadly lesson.
She didn't know she was taking a risk.
in his college classroom.
When you send your child away to college, it shouldn't be forever.
If they don't straighten out their safety problem, they are going to kill a student.
That's on Tuesday's Inside Edition. I'm glad to say we've got some mega interviews coming up, so I'll be on assignment, and Bill O'Reilly will be looking after you here. So thank you for joining us today. Until next time, goodbye for now.
Some air transportation furnished by Eastern. Some like it hot, and this winter Eastern has the hottest fares to the hottest destinations. Eastern to the Caribbean. It's the hottest ticket out of town.